Welcome to Flipping the Table and another honest conversation about food, farming, and the future. This is our last episode for 2024, and we are excited to share its optimism. After a 4-year hiatus, Diana Donlon, co-founder of SoilCentric, is in conversation with Michael about her work and the work of others she supports to promote and scale up regenerative land and agriculture practices. Her uplifting spirit and inspiring work is our way of ending an eventful year. We at Flipping the Table wish you a happy holiday and a healthy, delicious, and hope-filled 2025. Enjoy the show.
Hello. Most, if not all, those I've spoken to for this podcast over the last 6 seasons are optimistic and big-hearted people. They are also realists, which is critical in these times. Good and effective leaders remain undaunted by the perils we face. I need these people, and I believe we all do, to be both inspired and organized to take the actions required to face and overcome our challenges. My guest today, Diana Donlon, is one of the most undaunted and creative leaders I know. When I'm with her, my faith in humans, the apex species on the planet with our power to destroy, create, and heal, is renewed. Diana is a soil and climate advocate and co-founder of SoilCentric, a for-purpose organization designed to accelerate engagement in regenerative agriculture. She uplifts for others the untapped avenues for immediate climate action. Diana was a Flipping the Table guest in Season 2, 4 long years ago. It was a different time, a time of pandemic during the first Trump administration, a time when regenerative agriculture was just becoming a recognized phrase, linked to the creation of healthy soil, to capture carbon and deliver an array of other ecosystem services. Our conversation today will reveal Diana's path to meaningful work that is supporting people of all generations to become active in the effort to heal the climate and limit the damage of global warming. Her story is a great way to end an eventful year. There is much good happening in the world, and I know you will agree that Diana is helping to make that possible. So enjoy the show and happy holidays. See you in 2025. Diana, welcome. So glad to have you back at my place. It was 4 years ago that we did this last time.
Wow, time flies. Thank you, Michael. I'm so delighted to be here. I've been listening to your podcast faithfully, and I love it. I always learn so much from your conversations.
Good. Oh, that's nice. Great. I appreciate that. And I always learn so much from you. And I'm really excited that we get to get caught up after 4 years of SoilCentric, a program that you co-founded. And I was inspired by what we talked about last time. And, that was during the first months of COVID. We were sitting 6 feet apart in my backyard. And happily that's all in the past. But so much has happened in this country since then, including the recent election and 4 years of USDA and other federal investments in climate mitigation actions. So in short, the context has changed. And so I assume that SoilCentric has evolved in the last 4 years and that you've evolved. So why don't you remind people what SoilCentric is and then describe its evolution over the last 4 years?
Sure. So SoilCentric is an organization that I co-founded with a young man named Kyle Lawson, who is an artist in San Francisco. And we met originally at a podcasting workshop, actually, run by the Kitchen Sisters. And Kyle was telling me that he had read this book, but the book was The Soil Will Save Us by Chris Olson, and he just didn't know what to do next. And so the idea of SoilCentric is really to help connect you to your regenerative journey. We connect you to resources and opportunities in the regenerative space, which is thankfully growing and evolving. And we offer 4 different programs. So that's kind of like choose your own adventure. You can do things on your own. We have an app that is web-based. So if you go to our website, soilcentric.org, you can download it for free and then search it, and you can find books, movies, workshops, all sorts of apprenticeships, nonprofits, networks that are working to advance regeneration. So that is one thing that we offer, and we call that the Pathfinder tool.
We talked a lot about that last time.
Yeah,
'cause
that was
you
in
launched
development.
Yeah,
exactly,
right.
exactly. So that exists and is, I think, a very nice starting point for people to see the gamut of what is out there. There is a map that shows you like where places, you can search it by like location or say topic area. You could search it by agroforestry, or you could search it by Vermont, or you could search it by a training program. So you put
Many ways in.
And so that's one thing that we offer. We also do storytelling. We do a lot of original content. We do interviews with luminaries in the field, but also have people write pieces for us that have found their way, maybe started out as an accountant and learned about regeneration and thought, gosh, I want to apply my skills to the regenerative movement. How do I get going? And so through our app, they have found courses online, workshops that are in person, and then write to us and tell us about their journey and how it's going. So that's
interesting.
That's really fun, the regenerative storytelling piece, because we feel it gives people agency to see themselves as vital actors in this work. Because sometimes people say, well, that's nice, but I wasn't born into farming and ranching, so I don't know how I could possibly be involved. So we try to provide avenues for involvement. If you want a more customized approach, we do offer one-on-one climate coaching. So we have, we're really lucky to work with Judith D. Schwartz, a Vermont-based author, who's the author of several books on regeneration, including most recently the Reindeer Chronicles. And she is an encyclopedia for this movement. Judy can tell you any person, any program, anywhere in the world. And so if you want to meet with Judy, she can help you clarify your goals, your skills, and then make introductions on how you might get involved. I also do some of the climate coaching. So that's really fun. And that's a revenue stream for us. We do charge for that, although we have some pro bono opportunities there. And lastly, the biggest development since we last met is we started something called the Regenerative Action Ambassador Program.
Regenerative Action Ambassador Program. I like that.
Yeah, so that's the RAW program, we call it. And that came about because some people, during COVID, people wanted to meet, and they wanted to meet as a group. And so we started this program, well, it was actually after we launched it in 23. So we've had 2 full cohorts, and we meet online. It was a 9-month program. Next year, we're going to make it we're going to have 2 cohorts, 6 months each. But it's a very small group of people that meets twice a month on Thursdays, Thursday evenings, across many time zones. And we usually have a speaker who's a luminary in the field who comes and talks to us. And then the next meeting, we talk about people's impressions of the speaker, what they learned, and then we talk about their own projects, their goals, how their projects are going. So the RAW program is really fun. We had a fantastic group this year. We just finished up the 2024 cohort. We're actually accepting applications for 2025.
How do people put an application in?
They go to our website, and there's a little banner at the top that says applications now open. So we cap it at 10. So it's a very small group. Nonetheless, we get these world-class speakers like Reginaldo Haslet Marroquin, who's a regenerative farmer, poultry farmer in Minnesota, Neil Spackman, who did incredible work in Saudi Arabia, greening the desert, Brittany Cole Bush, who is shepherdess down in Ojai, who's leading the grazing movement. So people like that come and speak to us, even though we're a small group, because our participants ask such thoughtful questions and they're so engaged that the speakers find it worth their while.
What kind of people are they, the people that apply? Describe who they are.
Well,
first of all, are they all millennials, or are they?
No, they're all ages.
All ages. Okay,
all
cool.
ages, all walks of life. This year we had Echo, and Echo had been a firefighter, and she wanted to get involved with grazing. And so she checked out our app, and she found herself a seasonal grazing job for a beginning shepherdess at Kuyama Lamb. And then she also became an ambassador. and she's honing her skills and transitioning to being she wants to be the best shepherd she can be.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
So Echo is, she's probably mid-30s. We had Donalise, who is actually from this area.
Oh, yeah, from Healdsburg.
Yep. And Donalise is a real go-getter. She's
An entrepreneur.
An entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. She's starting something called Farmpreneurs, which is a fantastic program for farmers so that they can figure out, they get really entrepreneurial leadership training from like business school type minds. So Donalise was a fantastic addition to the program. We had Cindy from Houston. Cindy is a grandma who is an incredible artist whose son is actually involved, son and daughter-in-law are involved in the regenerative movement. She learned about these principles from them. And now she's doing living landscapes in Houston where she's taking monocultures that, like turf monocultures, lawns, and seeding them with native wildflowers and encouraging the local pollinators to come back. And she's just doing really cool cutting edge work.
Good for her.
That is symbiotic with the public too. We had Isaiah. Isaiah is a recent Yale grad from Puerto Rico who is starting a native plant nursery in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
So we just had
That's beautiful.
These incredible leaders. And so we started this, we thought they would be good ambassadors for regenerative action. And at the end, the cohort this year told us, this is really a leadership development program. So we were really excited. Kyle and I were excited to learn that this is the way they viewed the program. So we thought we would expand it next year, which is the reason why we're going to have 2 slightly shorter cohorts, and it will be available to 20 people as opposed to just 8 this year.
That's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic program. We're really excited to hear that because I do think giving people ways to become active is it's kind of the most important thing now.
Well,
because you can't depend on government to do everything.
You certainly can't. And going back to our original premise was that it's hard for people that are born outside of farming and ranching who don't have these skills to break in. You need certain skill level if you want to do the land-based piece. But there are so many other ways you can contribute, right? You don't have to go out and be a rancher or a farmer. You could be an entrepreneur. You could align your finances with this movement. There are plenty of ways that average people can contribute, and we go deep with people. And so if you're looking for guidance, SoilCentric is there to provide it.
Good. Well, this reminds me actually of another thing that we spoke about back in 2020. You were talking about so this is 4 years ago when things were emergent, strong, because there had been a lot of fires and drought stuff going on. So people were becoming very aware. And you talked about the need for a kind of a diversification and multiplication of sectors to become active in combating climate change and greenhouse gas emissions and the sequestration of those gases, the recapture of those gases. And I remember you mentioned John Fullerton, who you talked about beginning this whole field of regenerative economics. So, and you were optimistic about that. Have you seen what you wanted to see in this multiplication and diversification of action?
I think the regenerative sector is a bridge building sector. So I think, you're talking about context and the change of context, the change of administration. I think that focusing on soil health, it continues to be a win-win and something that is not polarizing, something that people respond well to. It attracts people from both sides of the aisle. And that's because it's tangible and because the co-benefits are they're not immediate as in overnight, but they are visible. They're benefits to the water cycle, to your water holding capacity, to the wildlife that your land can support, to rural economies. So
to the bottom line, if you're producing more productive,
line, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that we're still moving in that direction, but I think that as some other avenues might be more fraught, this continues to be one that holds a lot of promise, and I think we're going to see a lot of activity going forward.
Building off that during the Biden years, there was the launch of the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities. Have you come across any of those projects? Are those projects showing up in the channels of information that you're following? Are those any of the stories that you're starting to put up, content about those projects? I mean, because there were hundreds of them across the country, and it's billions of dollars that have been invested. Have you seen any of that yet? Because they're all just starting, but...
Right. No, I can't think of something that comes to mind with the exception of the Burroughs family farms down in Merced.
Mm-hmm.
They're leaders in the regenerative almond business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that they benefited from the investment of the Biden administration, but they certainly are impacting the way their neighbors that are conventional almond growers think. And they have been pioneers in Merced, California, that are looking, at the commodity, the almond trees, but they're also working with Jonathan Lundgren at Indicis to look at pollinator counts. They're working with UC Merced. So I am seeing signature projects like the Burroughs Family Farm that are moving us in the right direction.
I remember last time also we talked about Ratan Lal and his work in the Midwest and his kind of paradigm shifting thinking about soil as a medium for capturing lots of gas, carbon. And I think we even talked about some of the statistics that he was at that time sharing from his research. Are you still seeing the impacts of his work? Are there other names now of people in the sciences that are doing that soil-focused work that are helping to build the momentum?
Well, I think that the awareness about soil and its connection to climate has grown exponentially. I mean, I remember being told years ago that soil was boring and that nobody would be interested in soil. And I think that you hear about people talking about soil constantly now. It's a wonderful change, but it doesn't mean that soils are safe from erosion or from desertification or from toxic pesticides. I mean, they still need preserving, and I think that Ratan Lal was definitely one of the biggest names globally calling for a focus on soil health. Another person whose name has come up more recently is Toby Kears. She started something called SPUN, which is Society for the Protection of Underground Networks. They look at protecting the fungal networks.
Oh yeah, she's in the movie Common Ground.
Maybe, yeah. And she's doing really important work because there's this importance of the microbial communities
networks,
working with the fungal
And when you use
networks.
a plow, you cut them up.
And you cut them up, yeah. So the important thing now is people are talking more and more about the water cycle, and that certainly is related to soil health too, because we've seen epic drought, epic flood, and we see the oscillation between one and the other. And if your soils are healthy and spongy, that will help mitigate the flooding for sure, and also keep the water there for the more arid seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is encouraging. What was her name again? What was her name?
Her name is Toby Kears.
Yeah, Toby Kears. Okay, good. We had the last couple of years in California, we've had some wet years, and we had this huge, atmospheric river last week that dropped 13 inches of rain here in Sonoma County in 3 days, which is rare, but when it's been happening the last few years, it's really intense. Now, it's gotten dry again, and it looks like it's going to be dry for a while, so maybe we won't get any more rain. So these intense storms are probably the pattern of the future. And then if we don't capture it in the soil or we don't capture it in some sort of a reservoir, then it goes directly to the sea and it's lost. So it does require kind of a paradigm shift in how we think about our soil as a reservoir.
Yeah, I think we require a lot of paradigm shifts. And this is one of the beauties of this work, is constantly learning and expanding your thinking. I like to think of nature as our partner, and nature works cyclically, and you want to look at ecosystems to see if they're functioning. So if an ecosystem is functioning, the water cycle is functioning, the soil takes care of what it's supposed to do, like decomposition and growing food and holding water and different things. If it's not functioning, then we see a breakdown of the system. We see, these epic floods and droughts and desertification
and fires.
So we want to think less in silos and more the way nature thinks. And I think that would go a long way. I mean, you can pick your point of entry. It could be soil, it can be water, it can be biodiversity, but there are synergies between all of these things. I mean, carbon, carbon is one metric, but there are others as well.
Yes, I just thought back to your description of some of your cohort this year. You had a person who was really interested in animals and livestock. That's an entry point. The other one was the person who was doing art and wanted to change the way people keep their lawns. And then you had someone who wanted to start a nursery. And then an entrepreneur who wanted to stimulate the development of, there are many ways in. And I think it was very creative for you to think of this way of stimulating the creative process within humans so that they could become part of the solution.
Well, I like looking at the horizon and sort of seeing what's on the horizon and what the trends are. And I feel like something that maybe doesn't get the attention that it needs is inspiration. Like, how do people get inspired to do what they do? And so there has to be some catalyst, some spark. And sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's a film, sometimes it's a life experience, sometimes it's travel and you have a fantastic meal or a glass of wine somewhere. And what path that leads you down. But if we are going to be successful as humans, we need to really look more to what the natural environment is giving us and doing. I think we just need to heighten our awareness of what's going on around us all the time. It's incredible that it's December and there's been the fall foliage and that we've had pumpkins and that these things that we depend on, that birds are migrating now, are happening as we speak all the time, all around us. We take it for granted and we barely look up.
We hope you're enjoying the conversation. If you are, please rate our podcast and offer a review. Your voice will help us grow our listener base, which helps us sustain the funding to share these conversations with the people and organizations shaping a more just and regenerative future. A future in which the food and farm businesses are helping to solve the largest challenges of our time.
It triggers my thought about you as a person, like your journey. I think it is interesting. In the last 6 months, we hired a new person who just graduated with a master's at Stanford, Coco Sanabria. And I've been talking to her about pathways, and we've been working with her on how to communicate to millennials and people that are just graduating now. Like, how do you give them the faith in a very complex world that seems like it's full of challenges and roadblocks? How do you give them the faith that there's a way forward? So why don't you describe how you had a very interesting journey. How did you get to this idea that we need to think about how to inspire people and we need to be really aware of the moment and taking things in a new way? Can you trace how that happened?
Well, Michael, I have been incredibly blessed in this life, and I've just been a very fortunate person to have been born in California when I was born and to live in this beautiful state and see, we've had just an abundance of everything, an abundance of fresh food, abundance of natural beauty everywhere. We have state parks, we have national parks, we had pelicans flying overhead and, all sorts of marine life right there in the bay. Growing up right in San Francisco, I could see, seals and sometimes even whales in the bay. So
that influenced you?
That influenced me, for sure. But at the same time, I remember, certain dramatic, horrible events like an oil spill that happened in Bolinas when I was small, the Exxon Valdez spill up in Alaska in these pristine waters. So the desire to do something and care for it was very strong. I did go to Catholic school for my formative years, and I think there was definitely an emphasis on community. And I was in the Catholic schools at the time of the Vatican II sort of restoration, when it was, I don't know what they call it, but
Well, it was a liberalization.
where the emphasis was on doing good in the world and helping your neighbor and really extending yourself. So I was in the Peace Corps, probably as a result of that.
Remind me where you were service.
I served in Morocco, which was just a treat, but I learned a lot there because it was an absolute monarchy at the time. King Hassan II was the absolute ruler, like Louis XIV, kind of a ruler who just did what he pleased. Nonetheless, the country was very prosperous and had a bounty of food. But I could see environmental pressures there. I could see, population growth that was just incredible. I could see resource extraction and dwindling wildlife. I could see, plastics coming in and blowing around, plastic bags. So that also informed my journey, being a Peace Corps volunteer. But then I was lucky to work for the Richard and Rhoda Goldman Fund for many years, and I was the person that did research on people who were nominated for the Goldman Prize from Africa.
Which is like the Academy Awards for environmentalists.
Yeah. So for Africa, Europe, or Western Europe, and South America. So it was kind of like just this incredible opportunity once again to learn about all the different ecosystems out there, and also the different challenges facing people in different parts of the world. And really, at the end of that, that's when I became very interested in the food system, because I saw that the way we produce food was impacting so many different...
So what year would that have been?
So I started working at the Goldman Fund in 1990 and until 2000.
So in that 10-year period is when your consciousness around food systems kind of exploded, opened up.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I related to the Goldman Prize, probably because of you, I started to get invited to that, and I would go to it. And this is amazing. One of the best speeches I've ever seen given in my life was Robert Kennedy Jr. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that speech, but I did write speeches for him from time to time.
Wow.
As part of that, because he would introduce us when he was still with Riverkeeper. He would introduce, we would take the prize recipients to New York and DC. And I think it was in DC, he would introduce the prize recipients at the National Geographic Society. He was very forgetful. He lost his speech, and I'd have to keep, this is, back in the day where everything was printed, and I'd have to keep like 4 or 5 copies.
That's funny. Well, I remember he gave this speech. It was in San Francisco, and it brought me to tears. It was so beautiful. He was talking about different people around the world and what they were doing and how much their lives were at risk. And I just remember thinking, my God, what a speech. Now, it's a different story now, but it was a really amazing thing to remember. That was at least 10 years ago, maybe more. But the Goldman Prize, that was a fantastic, I think it did a lot for advancing environmental work.
I think so, because the focus was on grassroots environmental activists. And before that, the focus had been on high-level people, sort of, heads of state and people that were very well connected. And the Goldman Prize really flipped that and looked at, indigenous people, and looked at women, and looked at people in inner cities and people that didn't have a platform and a voice. So yeah, those were exciting years.
Yeah, that was good. And then you went. And how did you get from there to SoilCentric?
Well, so I worked on Roots of Change
Yes,
for a while.
you did.
So that was really fun.
Yeah.
And I was working at some other family foundations, including the William Zimmerman Foundation and the Columbia Foundation. And then I thought, I've only worked for foundations, which is a very insulated place to work, a wonderful opportunity to work at foundations, but nonetheless, it's not as hard as working in the nonprofit world. So I thought I have to get out of the foundation ivory tower and go and do some of the work that we're facilitating. And so I was lucky enough to be hired by Center for Food Safety to start their food and climate program. And that's when I thought, well, gosh, what can we add to the conversation? And what I wanted to add to the conversation was soil and climate. Take food and take it one step further back. So I did that for a couple of years, and that was really, really fabulous to be on the sort of the beginning of the conversation around soil and health. Then I decided that it was time for me to go out on my own and specialize in helping people find their path, because I felt like the awareness around soil and climate was building and that was taken care of. So I didn't need to do that anymore. And we had contributed to that with the program that I started at CFS called Soil Solutions. But SoilCentric just came about because I also really value intergenerational conversation and intergenerational relationships. It's something I learned from my mom, who was raised in Mexico. And my children were getting older, and their friends would come and say, like, hey, we want to talk to your mom about what she does, because we don't know, we want to study environmental studies, but we don't really know what we're going to do with it. So can we talk to her? And I realized that there was a need to mentor people and to maybe share some of the knowledge that I had gained along the way, and then also learn from the young people who have all these amazing skills, can do things like, that just would tie me in knots in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, it is interesting how the young generations now that are coming up have all these skills for mass communication and technology, but also they need the guidance around the science or the pathways like you're providing. I remember in our previous conversation 4 years ago, you talk about this need to find meaningful work. And so young people obviously want to find meaningful work that's going to improve the prospects for their future, because it looks challenging right now. But you must feel, we're close in age. I'm older than you, but we're close in age. And so you must be feeling good about the fact that you found some meaningful work at this stage in your work life, your career.
I love my work. I really am so excited to learn every day, to meet the people that I meet. One of the things that drew me to regenerative agriculture first, and then just the regenerative movement overall, is it's positive. It's not fighting against something, but it is working with, we are living systems embedded in larger living systems. And so working to create more abundance, more life, more biodiversity, more climate stability, more food resilience, that's all energizing. My advice to young people would be that getting involved in regeneration fills your well, and it keeps filling it, because, activism can be draining, and we need to celebrate and keep joyful even when it's super challenging. I just love. Did you read Margaret Rankel in the Times? In the Times, and she had that essay about the biodiversity crisis. But she's just going to one flower pot at a time. She's one bird box at a time. She's creating habitat, and there is joy in that. And there's purpose in that, and there's meaning in that. I can't tell you. Unfortunately, our cat was killed by a driver this year, and it was very sad because we loved our cat. It was a Maine Coon cat. But since we don't have a cat in the yard anymore, the bird life in our garden is exponential. And it can't hurt that we're putting, that we're also working on improving the soil health and leaving standing matter so that they're little stalks and seeds for the birds. And we have the Merlin app, and to learn about all these birds, but we are creating that habitat for birds to come in abundance in our backyard. It's so rewarding, Michael.
Yes,
and fun.
I experienced the same thing. Yeah. It's really nice. I sit in my backyard often, and just between the squirrels, I have a lot of squirrels in this neighborhood, and the birds. It's like a show. It's like watching a movie.
Yeah.
There's I have now my relationship to the crows. I have huge oak trees in the house behind my house. And there are tons of crows that roost, and they are now not afraid of me. They will come within 4 feet and land in the chair and just look at me.
Wow.
It's really bizarre. I get a little freaked out.
No, they're some of the smartest creatures out there.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I love the crows. I see one right now across the street through the window. Oh. So you hit on something here. You talked about your optimism and the fact that this kind of work is extremely, it fills the soul. As you described it, energizing instead of enervating. It gives you energy. So you remain an optimist, it sounds like, about the world. And even the climate movement, despite the fact that the COP, whatever it was, 24, that just happened, 25, I think it was 24, didn't really generate anything of real value. And we're facing a potential administration that's going to put the brakes on a lot of things. So you remain optimistic, and so why?
I think that if you take the long view, so, I was a history major in college.
Yes,
I think
yes.
you were too, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and so we're just a blip in history, right? We're just a footnote. And so if you look at the long view of history, I think that's helpful because there's so many generations prior to ours where they thought, oh my gosh, this is the end, the Napoleonic Wars or famines in Egypt or the nuclear
World War
age,
II.
World War II, the Civil War,
Yeah.
you name it. And it just thought, okay, end times are coming. So, looking at history helps put things in perspective. So there's that. But I also take great comfort from Robin Wall Kimmerer's words, who says something like, even a wounded world is still feeding us and caring for us. And so if we really have a relationship to the earth, and if you don't have one, you can cultivate one, I think that grounding will help you get through a lot of sadness and a lot of sorrow. I mean, just looking at the sky and the nightly show that we get with clouds during the day and maybe a rainbow. I saw an incredible rainbow the other day. Stars at night, sunsets, dawn. That happens every single day. And trees that are providing habitat and oxygen and fruit and lumber and shade, and contributing to the water cycle. That's happening right outside your front door here. So I think if you can cultivate and maintain a relationship to the natural world, it helps with the hope and the optimism.
Yeah, well said. It reminds me that you have a choice of how you're going to look at things, and thinking about history is a really good way to get that perspective. Well, first of all, an individual human being is not here on the planet very long.
No.
When you think about I'm reading a book right now about stone, turning to stone. It's called. It's a geologist talking about her life journey and what she learned from stone, like studying stone all around the world, how stone is created or recreated, destroyed and created by the movement of tectonic plates. And you just realize that we are not significant. And even if it all goes, were to go really badly, the earth would heal and the planet would heal. Some things would be lost, but this planet will go forward. And the pain with which we will face over the next few years will be diminished by the amount of people that follow the path that you've laid out. If you can take action, then you become part of the solution. Your life is more meaningful and you lessen the challenge that we face.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's very sad to see the earth suffer and to see, especially with the biodiversity, that we're losing plants and animals at an accelerated, scary rate. But at the same time, we have it within ourselves to take action, especially locally, to, come together in community and stop that and then reverse it sometimes. So as you see, I think one of the most hopeful stories in the recent years for me has been the beaver in California.
Yeah.
And to see that, these are nature's engineers and that they are able to slow the water down, spread the water out, help it sink and infiltrate, and help us fight fires. And that can happen much more quickly than even the most esteemed scientists thought possible. That our state is now letting beavers back, reintroducing them into the wild as little firefighters. So it's not a go it alone. Oh, we humans are the only creature out there. No, they all have a role to play. And if we
unleash them,
let the beavers be, it's to our benefit.
So we're approaching the end here. So I wanted to just hear from you your recommendations to individuals. I think everybody is thinking about what they can do What can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? What can I do in my life? What do you tell people when they ask you, what can I do to be part of the solution to climate change?
Well, I think we have to broaden our thinking about what causes climate change. So it's been, very clearly communicated that energy is the way we consume energy is part of it. But it's more than that, right? So it's also deforestation contributes greatly to climate change. So we have to think about like afforestation and replanting and growing, because when you're growing something, it is actually pulling carbon out of the air. And that is like what we want to be doing, right? So there's so many ways that we can reframe our thinking. And there's one little example that I'll give you that just hit me like a lightning bolt one day. And that is, I've been drying our clothes outside forever on a line. And I thought I was doing it so that I wouldn't use the gas, right? So that I wouldn't use the dryer and consume electricity. What I didn't think about was that I'm also, by putting wet clothing out on the line on our patio, I'm putting water back into the system that would otherwise be taken out and, go down a pipe somewhere. And
to the ocean.
To the ocean. And so I thought, I'm not only doing less bad, I'm doing more good. And so I think that is one thing that if people could stop thinking about like scarcity, like, okay, I'm going to give up this and I'm not going to do that. And think at the same time, think about like, what am I going to do to increase abundance, to increase vegetation, to increase the life cycle? That is, again, affirming and exciting. And if you can do it in community, I think that we're going to need, nobody wants to be isolated. And going forward with this new administration, I think that if you have strong community bonds, which can be, you can volunteer, that helps do that. You can invite people over for a potluck. Conversations around the table are always meaningful, and that's when people relax and think and maybe are open to new ideas. But I think that doing what you can in your own community will be incredibly important, so that you increase your resilience and your fire readiness or disaster readiness. If something happens, you can knock on the neighbor's door. The neighbor will know you. The neighbor will trust you. Mm-hmm. Democracy is all about trust. Mm-hmm. And I think that we need to put some of that trust back into our neighbors.
Wow. That's a really beautiful way to end this conversation, this idea of building trust with our neighbors. Probably nothing more important today in our time.
Well, I think that, it does help ground you, and there's reciprocity, right? So it's not a one-way street. You will get back more than you ever give. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Great to see you. Appreciate the conversation.
Really fun.
Thank you for listening. Roots of Change is a program of the Public Health Institute.